pass their comments over to Emma. Our third speaker this afternoon is Tony Hurst. He will be giving his fifth speech project. This speech is Your Body Speaks, and he'll use his stance, movement, gestures, facial expression, eye contact to express his message and achieve his speech's purpose. He'll also make his body language smooth and natural. Tony worked for FHA in the late 1960s. He specialized in analyzing local economies near major military installations. His talk today is about part of what he learned. His speech title is the D.E.W. line. Okay.
Derek's a victim of my it's the D line, D.E.W., which, as I'll tell you later, stands for distant early warning. I'm sure we all feel concerned when the news reports one of our enemies is making flight. Since 9/11, we have made major changes in our defense systems, our security systems, in response to these types of threats, which some turned out to be real. This, of course, is not the first time we have been faced with serious security problems. Let me tell you one of our biggest threats in the past and how we dealt with it. Some of you may remember, well, I'm going to take this by generations. Some of you may remember air raid drills in school. Some of you may remember the black and yellow signs on the sides of buildings that told you there would be a bomb shelter in the basement of the building. And some of you remember, probably, that there were people who had bomb shelters built in their backyards. All of this was directly a result of a very real threat from the Soviet Union after World War II. The Soviet threat, notwithstanding things we've read in the past, was very real. After World War II, Russia embarked on an aggressive program of military expansion. This included a nuclear program that resulted in the successful explosion of the atomic bomb in 1949 and the development of a very large fleet of long-range bombers. In fact, it became clear to us in the United States that a Soviet bomber leaving northern Russia could cross the Arctic undetected and easily reach many of our major U.S. cities. Because they're undetected, it would be too late to do anything about it. We as a nation decided that we needed an early warning system so that we could launch a counterattack before their bombers got here. This didn't solve the problem, but the knowledge that we could do this before they got here meant that they had to think twice about actually taking the action. And if you ever seen the film Dr. Strangelove, you know this story very well. So we came up with the idea of the DEW line, and that's D.E.W. line, which is just an early warning. The idea was to construct a line of radar stations across the top of Canada. You have a map there that shows the actual one. This is the actual map of the radar line across the top of Canada. And the idea was to catch any airplanes coming over the Arctic early enough to give us time to launch a counterattack. We started planning the DEW line in 1952. We built several prototype type radar stations in rural Illinois and a couple of other locations. And through that effort, found out it was actually feasible to build radar stations along the Arctic Ocean in North Canada. While we were doing this development work, they flew 1 million miles of northern Canada and took 80,000 aerial photographs to identify where to put the sites. By the way, there's a certain area of North Canada where in the wintertime you're not sure which is land and which is sea. So that's why it's summertime. Construction started in December 1954. This is an incredibly massive transportation and construction operation. And until I started researching this, I had no idea what this meant. We moved 460,000 tons of tools, machines, and materials by airplane and ship to do this job. This included 45,000 air flights that averaged 720 miles per flight. In addition, we shipped 75 million gallons of gas and oil to the north. For the workers, remember, don't forget the workers, they're going to be there. We shipped 22,000 tons of food, 12 acres of bed sheets, 6 acres of rugs, and 3 miles of window shades. This is an absolutely turnkey operation. Now, here's some of the detail. In all, over 7,000 equipment operators, carpenters, masons, plumbers, welders, electricians, and other trades worked on the DEW line. In addition, there were hundreds of airplane crews, civil and electrical engineers, and labs working here in the United States. Overall, 25,000 people worked on the project. At completion, there were 7 main stations with 10 to 25 employees each, 23 secondary stations, which only had a chief, a cook, and a mechanic, and a whole group of filling stations which were unmanned, and we would check them periodically by airplane. Here's the amazing part. We started in December 1954 and finished in April of 1957. This is in a place where you work 6 months of the year in the dark, and the temperature ranges from 60 below zero most of the winter to only about 40 above during the summer. You have continuing blizzards and 100-mile-an-hour winds. And through all of that, we learned how to pour concrete at 60 below zero. We learned how to put concrete piles into tundra that's going to melt in the summer and keep it stable. We learned all of these things. I gave you a photo in the handout, which I found quite fascinating. That's one of the main stations. As I said, there were 7 of them. And you had a crew of about 25 living there. They had everything they needed. They brought in, during the summer, they brought in gasoline on ships and all the fuel and all the other things they needed. Offloaded it, and they had all the tanks they needed for the entire winter on the base. So that's how they worked. The DEW line protected us 24/7 from 1957 to 1990. Nobody ever tested. In 1990, the dissolution of the Soviet Union reduced the threat, and we returned the DEW line and that territory as far as contractual control to Canada. So the next time the news brings up a threat, remember, we've been threatened before. We really could do something about it. Thank you.